Welcome to PhD with Women on IT Hack the Future. My name is Beata Young, and today's PhD Positivity Hacks delivered will be by our guest, Jerry Dozier. Topic: How your professional brand affects your negotiation power. Episode 105 starts here. Let me remind you, this is a grassroots community that focuses on women on IT, an inclusive forum of women in technology, startups, and female leaders who are supported by men as well. And I bring heart to that hustle because empathy is my mojo. And empathy is critical when you're building your professional brand and you're trying to get that negotiation power. Let me just run past you some great news. Huge congratulations to Julie Barbier-Leblanc, CEO and co-founder of Merit, for winning the prestigious Forbes Woman Award in technology category at the Middle East event on May 22nd, 2023. Keep inspiring us all with your incredible achievements. Hooray to Chantel K for accomplishing her biggest achievement of getting into the new world of tech and getting qualified for you. We are proud of you and we are rooting for your continued success. Finally, Adina Friedman, applause to the chair and chief executive of NASDAQ. An excellent and inspiring speech for all the 2023 newly graduates of the American University Kogot School of Business last weekend. May you continue to inspire others, Adina. Now let's go back to our topic, how your professional brand affects your negotiation power. In today's competitive business landscape, understanding the impact of your personal brand is essential for achieving success in negotiations. Whether it's securing a job offer, closing a business deal, or advocating for yourself in the workplace, or buying a car, buying a house, whatever it is, you need to listen to our conversation. Positivity Hack Delivered episode 105 guest Jerry Dozier is a STEM career coach who helps professionals and leaders in STEM careers secure new jobs. With her own experience of landing higher salary increases and building several streams of income, Jerry understands the power of strategic career moves and financial planning. Her personal anecdotes show the vital role of a professional brand plays in negotiations and in guiding professionals towards achieving their career goals. Join us, ask questions, speak up, because you've got the unique opportunity to talk to our expert in the field. Jerry, where in the world are you today calling us from?
I am in Atlanta, Georgia.
Beautiful. I mentioned the fact that I love your background because that's one of your streams of revenue, isn't it? Making sure that interior of your houses that you're renting is looking
Yes, very
magnificent.
true. Yes, very true. Yes.
So, what brought you to going into the field of renting a place? I'm sorry to delve into this topic, but it's really fascinating to know that you've got different revenues and different streams of financial revenue. So, tell me, what's your story?
My story is I was, I grew up around real estate. My dad, when I was in college, well, actually high school, when I was in high school, my dad decided to open up a real estate brokerage. So I was always, my summer job was like sending mailers for him and like doing his little admin work. So I had been exposed to real estate earlier on in life. And then fast forward several years, I'm working at Tesla and there are layoffs happening. And so that's my first realization that, like, oh my goodness, I have this great job, but nothing is guaranteed. Things can change. And so I started thinking maybe I need some side income. And one of my childhood friends, she had started investing, and she really took me under her wing and I say she's my mentor. And it just took off from there. So now I'm thoroughly believe that our careers are very important, but our careers should also allow us the opportunity to feed our other interests and also set up other routes of revenue, because our careers are so fickle. I mean, it doesn't matter how much you love your career, we're not in control of it all of the time. And so
Absolutely.
the reason I got into real estate is because I wanted some sense of control around at least one of my streams of income.
That's one of the streams that you need a lot of negotiating power,
Mhm.
and definitely that's how you got into nitty gritty of how to negotiate and how to get a win win. So tell us, you worked in Tesla. Tell us, how did you get into the field of STEM?
Well, interesting story. My dad dropped out of high school, and right around the time that I was born, he was going to get an associate's degree. He decided he wanted to be an electrician. And so my entire life growing up, my dad was an electrician for the city of Cincinnati. And that meant he spent most of his days shadowing engineers and, learning from them and working on these projects. And so I think he just, he saw the my ability. I was good at math. I had interested in it. I had interest in science. And he's like, light bulb went off in his head. He's like, I dropped out of school, so I couldn't be an engineer. My dad is really smart, but because he didn't have the educational background, right, those jobs were just not available. But he's like, you can do it. So he pushed me into electrical engineering, and I haven't looked back.
And you couldn't negotiate that with your dad. You just had to do whatever he demanded.
Well, I could have negotiated it, but I didn't have anything else to do, right? I didn't exactly disagree with him. I didn't
Hmm.
disagree that I should do engineering. He chose the electrical path. I didn't know which path I wanted to go. And he said, well, I'm an electrician, so you should just do electrical. And I said,
Mm.
yes.
That's fabulous. Well done on your career, Jerry. We met a couple of years ago. I mean, we've been friends on LinkedIn, and it really inspired me how you build your professional brand. And that's actually what the core of our discussion today is
Mhm.
going to be, because you, through your personal brand, you build your power as an avid negotiator. Tell
Mhm.
us why you decided to go this path.
Well, I think it was, missed opportunity. I think when I look back at my experience in my career, I think one of the very first mistakes I made right out of college, the first job I got offered was not negotiating. I didn't negotiate a thing. I took exactly what they gave me. And that was because I didn't know. I knew nothing about negotiation. They don't talk about it in high school, they don't talk about it in college. I knew nothing about negotiating. My family background, I'm really first generation corporate. So, with my dad being an electrician, he's works for the city, he's a service worker. Their pay is dictated to them as well. Um, so once I got exposure to, no, you don't have to take the first offer that people give you. And this is just the start of a conversation. Once I got exposed to that, I really felt like it was my duty to share, because I know there's so many people who come from the same walk of life that I do. They've gone through college and they still don't have any really good resources to help them navigate, negotiations and branding and all these um, soft skills, right? They have the hard skills, they have the degrees. And so I really thought that I could really help and serve the community by, sharing what I've learned throughout the years.
Excellent. But how does building your brand help your negotiation?
Absolutely. You cannot negotiate if you don't have a brand, right? Because, and what I mean, let's talk about what is a brand. I define a brand as who you are, what you do, and how you add value. That is my personal definition of a brand. And so when you enter a conversation or a negotiation, if the person on the other side of the table from you doesn't understand who you are, what you do, and how you're gonna add value to them, they're probably not willing to listen to you, right? You have no stake in the conversation. You have no way to persuade them. You have no way to control the conversation. Basically, if you don't have any skin in the game. So establishing your brand is your way of getting skin in the game and earning your way, earning your seat at the table. So when the person across from you, when their needs correlate to who you are, what you do, and how you add value, now we're in a negotiation because I have something that you need. So when you come to the table being very unclear on your brand, you're already setting yourself up to quote unquote lose the negotiation because you're not able to position what you bring and how that correlates to what the other person needs.
Well, the idea of positioning your personal or professional identity appeared in the 1981 book Positioning: The Battle for Your Mind by Iris and Jack Trout. More specifically, in chapter 23, Position Yourself and Your Career. You can benefit by using positioning strategy to advance your own career. The concept of personal branding is often attributed to Tom Peters and his concept of brand you from his 2001 book. But branding, personal branding, has been for much longer. It was not called the branding, personal branding. It developed over the years. However, when you mean building your personal brand, do you mean online, offline, or a mix of both?
It's really a mix of both. That's an interesting question. Thank you for that. It's really a mix of both. I think in the digital age, a lot of people are focused on their online brands, how they show up on social media, what their LinkedIn profile looks like. And I think that's a part of it. But I think the much harder thing to do is offline because you actually have to show up. You have to be fluid in conversations. You have to be able to speak to who you are, what you do, and how you add value, your accomplishments. It becomes offline. The challenge is really how good of a communicator are you?
Mm.
Online, you really, can just put out whatever you feel, and you just sit back and you wait for people to see how people receive it. Um, and it's a little bit of a smokescreen, right? Um, you don't really take a lot of the things personal that you see online because you may or may not know these people. You've never seen them before. But when you're offline and you're having to have a conversation with a potential employer or a hiring manager, and you really have to speak to from the heart, you really have to speak to who you are and being able to articulate your story and things like that. I think is much harder offline, and I think that's where more people should spend their time. In fact, a lot of my clients, as a career coach, that is the number one pain point of a lot of my clients is that they know they are talented. They do not know how to articulate that talent. They don't even know how to pull out the key components that are important to that person that sits across from you. And so this kind of leads me to, negotiation isn't just about salary. It isn't just about money. Every conversation is a negotiation. Every single conversation. And so, you know, you always, if you have an end goal, if you want to um see something, a particular outcome from a conversation, whatever kind of conversation it is, you have to have on a negotiation lens, which says, what do I bring versus what do they need? And how can I position myself as the best candidate, person, etc.
Ever.
Yeah,
Absolutely. We have Kim asking for a link. I hope you can get it, and we are hopeful you can join us later on, maybe on YouTube, and ask us questions. Now, Jerry, you mentioned you can post whatever you want. We know from research that shows that 90% of HR departments, people responsible for hiring, are checking your online presence. So, what would be the strategy to showcase your expertise? What would you advise somebody who has no online presence and want to build a very strong online presence that will help the negotiation process?
great question. I would start by keeping it simple. And what it, because, and I'm going to tell you a little bit more about that, about what that means. But what most people do when they think to themselves, I need to create an online brand, they try to come up with something really creative, and they try to think outside of the box, and they want to do something really big and grand. But the reality is that if you look at the people on social media that you really like, the people on YouTube that you're following, the people on LinkedIn who you love their posts, they focus on storytelling and bringing you along the journey. Like that is the best content. So when you're trying to establish your online brand and you want to create corporate friendly content, right? Bring us along the journey. If you're a project manager, what's actually going on? Do you know how many um, people who want to become project managers, they would love to basically be a fly on the wall, throughout your whatever you have going on, the next 30 days, the next 60 days, if you have a goal. Um, and that's what I found to really, really work on YouTube. The people that I want to watch on YouTube, they've taken me along a journey with them. And so I think that's a tip that people can infuse in. You don't have to come up with, these catchy quotes or, anything viral. It's literally taking people along your journey so that they can start to understand who the authentic you is. And it's a lot easier to come up with content when you're actually talking about what you're doing. Because I know from experience, it's a lot harder to sit down and say, I need 5 posts this week. The easier thing to do is, what did I do on Monday that was cool that I could share? And then walk through your week. Um, and I should take my own advice and do that today because I need to get back on my content game. But that's what I would do.
Absolutely. So, apart from presence on social media, whether it's LinkedIn, whether it's less professional network like Mark Zuckerberg platform, let's say, what about the professional newspapers or online presence? Is there anything you would highly advise to somebody who's, for example, specialized in, I don't know, security?
So, as an employee, you mean how?
Yes. To get a to
I,
secure a potential job offer, and somebody who's working in security knows the latest hackers invaded some privacy, what should they do
mm,
apart from using the platforms that are available?
I mean, I haven't read a newspaper in I don't know. We ever like I haven't even seen a newspaper in a long time. So it's definitely harder out, outside of online. But then I think the only other thing you can do is absolutely network. So you're going to use online to network, but you can also use your family, use your friends, go to professional networking events. If you are a security professional, pick one of the big conferences, and there are hiring managers there, there are HR people there are recruiters there. So if you really want to get your foot in the door in a certain industry and you're struggling, go where those people hang out. So,
Mm.
and that's usually at conferences or online boards or different groups. And so I want to encourage people to put yourself out there, because a lot of times people do think that if I post a couple of things on my LinkedIn and I say I'm open to work and whatever, that the job will just find me. But sometimes you have to do a little bit more, and sometimes you're just not in the right places to be, you're not in the sphere of where these opportunities are abundant. um so I would say get out of your own sphere and try to get closer to the circles where the people are who have what you're trying to achieve.
Well, I have to say that the printed version is appealing to my generation. I believe that,
Okay.
Jerry, you may not be so obsessed with something you can't scroll down. However, we have a lovely guest here in the background. Peekaboo, I am here. Thanks for the link, says our previous guest, Kim Vermack. So I can't help but think about the professional publications that you can
Okay.
showcase during the negotiation and say,
Yeah.
for example, apart from mentioning that on your CV, you can say that you have written an article in a newspaper, you have written a book about the topic, you have been a member of networking group that
Mm-hmm.
is networking among specialists. Would that be a good background for your negotiation?
I think so. But I think the reason why I didn't initially suggest that is because I don't want people to obsess over it, right? Because when you give people something to go do like that, they start to obsess over getting that thing, and then when they do get someone's attention, they're still not ready to speak to and articulate who they are, what they knew, how they have value, because they've been so focused on, I gotta write this paper, I gotta write this paper. Just quick story. One of my previous clients, she was studying to get the PMP, her project management certification. And in trying to do that, I think she almost lost sight of what the actual goal of getting the certification was, right? We're not getting the certification for the sake of passing a test. We're getting the certification because of the three next steps that will become available to me after I get the certification. So, in the same vein, I think getting publications and getting your name out there is important, but I want to make sure that you've already established your brand and can articulate it before you basically start marketing yourself. Because what happens when you start marketing and you're not ready for the inbound traffic is that you get all this interest, but you have nothing relevant to say to them, and we don't want that either.
Hmm.
Um, and I'm glad you kind of just reminded me. I was on the cover of a magazine. I was on the cover of the Minority Engineering magazine, and I guess it was a huge deal. And it is on my resume, and it is something that I talk about. Um, but it wasn't exactly something that I went after per se, right? It was something that came to me after I established my brand and did the work. So it is definitely an option for you. I think it's actually a cool thing to do. Like if you are trying to navigate into another space, and you are having some trouble talking about your transferable skills or establishing your brand if after you've pivoted into something else. I do think putting yourself out there, writing articles, getting, having some press things that you can point to that show you are an expert in this other field. I do think that may be helpful for people who are struggling getting into another field.
Excellent. Thank you so much. We've got In Love and in Pain joining us. Hi, Beata and Jerry. Thank you for this interesting live stream. I'm learning from this. Heart to you, In Love and in Pain. And we have Kim again saying, I have LinkedIn articles and they helped
Mm.
me position myself. I write one or two expert articles that I sent through the prospects before our meeting. That's Kim's approach, and that's definitely useful. And another comment, speakers groups like Toastmasters or Speakers Association also helps
Hmm.
improve your ability to communicate in person. So we talk about communication,
Hmm.
Jerry, and I believe it's critical for anybody's success. If you can't vocalize what you're after, you can't start negotiation. So let's imagine we have Jerry who just entered her first job opportunity, sitting at the table and are going to approach potential employer about salary. What would be your advice? How to get around that topic?
How to get it? Well, I'd say get through the topic. You can't get around the topic, but to get through the topic, um, if I was going after my first job, here's what I should have done. Wish I would have done. So I would have tried to understand and do some research ahead of time of the negotiation. That's like the first thing you need to do. And so, what does your research look like as a job candidate? You should clearly understand, and this is something I have my clients do. What are the top three things, top three skills, top three outcomes that this role needs to produce? And so once you know this is what they really, really need, and then you can also do some other research about, salary, right? What is the value of what they are saying they need? And so you look up other job descriptions and you see what those salary ranges are. And thank goodness now most of the salary ranges are posted. A lot of your work is actually done for you. But you can look at other jobs and you can go to salary boards and you start to associate the value of the things that these people need and how much they are willing to pay for it. And then you look at yourself and you say, where do I stack up on these things that they say they need? And so it not only, can I say I'm good or can I say I have the experience, do I have a story to back it up? Do I have an accolade? Do I have a magazine cover? Have I written an article? And so that's where some of those things come in handy as proof, proof and leverage that not only you're looking for these top three skills, but here is where I have experience in them. Here is how my profile aligns to that. And depending on where your profile aligns, I think you should be realistic with yourself, right? If you are hitting it out of the park, you should 100% be entering the negotiation table at the top end of the salary range. And I'm not saying the last number, right? Because if you're on a range from 100 to 200, they're not going to give you 200,000. So don't start the negotiation there. But you shouldn't start at 100 if you have, you know, a lot of experience in what they're looking for. Um, so that's where I would start the conversation. That's where I would start to prepare for myself. And then I would lead with that. I mean, you can always start the conversation with here's what I understand to be a value in this role. Here is where I stack up to that. Here is the value that I have placed on my skill set and my ability to help you accomplish this. And one other thing about negotiation, that I want to be clear, it's not 100% about the salary range and what they're offering either. Because what I realize is that I actually had some mindset blocks around money, and most of us do. So if you are presented with a salary range of 100 to 200 and you have never even thought that 200 was in the cards for you, well clearly you're going to immediately self disqualify, and you're going to say, I don't even deserve that. Let me go back here closer to what makes me feel comfortable, and that might be 125 when your value may say 175. So I think, it's it's ebb and flow about value that the marketplace has placed on something, value that you have placed on something. And then also the third component is, what will you be happy with? What will allow you to build a life that is working for you? Because if you only look at the salary negotiation as, I need to take whatever is in the band that the recruiter is willing to offer me, and you start that job, and a month later you realize you have no disposable income at the end of the month, you're going to be unhappy again. And so that's the third component you got to consider. What salary will actually work for me? And my personal belief is that your salary has to offer some disposable income so that you can, in my case, build a real estate portfolio, start a career coaching business. I mean, if you don't have any money, or disposable income to make mistakes, to try some things, then you'll essentially be working forever,
Hmm.
on someone else's dream.
Absolutely. Now, let's imagine that Jerry didn't negotiate at the start, and that's actually true that men initiate negotiations about 4 times as often as women. So, how to initiate negotiation after you got a job and you feel uncomfortable because you're much lower than everybody else in your department at a similar job description?
That's an uphill battle. 0 out of 10, do not recommend. Zero, do not recommend, because all of your leverage is gone. You're already in the job. Now they can kind of say, well, but you know, maybe they want to judge on some of the past work that you've presented. Right now, the cards are stacked against you. You don't really have much of an argument, um, unless you are a rock star. And they're not a new company, a new role. They're not going to believe you or give you that credit for a while. If you have been at a company for 3 to 4 years, and you have a list a mile long of times you've saved a day and things you've accomplished and things they wouldn't be able to do without you, then you can come to that table and you can say just that. I've been being underpaid. Here's the value of what I bring. Here are all the things I've done for this company and organization. We need to recalibrate, but you have to have some leverage. And so, unfortunately, you have to get it right the first time. When you're entering a new company, a new role, you have to get it right. The only way to circumvent that is 2 or 3 years down the track, or you leave the company and you try to get it right somewhere else.
There is another study that calculated that women who consistently negotiate their salary increases earn at least 1 million more during their careers than women who don't. We have Olga Vasina asking us questions. Love the comment on your job search. Clearly, there is an issue with early jobs as you can negotiate how much you need to leave. That's a baseline. How can you justify you can get to the top of a value range Is it just hard data, media, or can you use storytelling to add to that leverage? I believe you answered some of that question already. However, do you also account the fact that, for example, you're gonna be working in East Coast versus West Coast? How does
Abs-
that play role?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because I've worked both East Coast and West Coast. And the new college grads on the East Coast, well, they might only be making 70, but in California, new college grads, they've been paying them 110. So yeah, it definitely matters. And you have to know that, right? Because you could fall into a trap of, I'm coming from the East Coast. I know what a good salary is over here. And that might be in range for the recruiter to offer you. Um, but that higher range is also an option for them to offer you if you state that claim that this is the value of this in this area. I definitely think, thank you for bringing that up, that where you are in location, that is another piece of the research that you must do, so that you can like actually quantify what
You
that
can
range
bring
is.
the data. Now,
Yeah.
Olga is doing a follow up question. How long? What do you need to do, Jerry, to prove you are a rock star? Is it really 3, 4 years, or say with a fast growing startup or a company enduring big change? When can you have the leverage to recalibrate?
So yeah, I overshot it a bit. It doesn't take 3 or 4 years, but um, in my own personal story, I got to Tesla fast, fast company, startup culture. And so 6 months in, I was promoted to be the manager of the team, right? Not normal at, more uh, traditional, I should say, companies. Um, so there are opportunities where you can show that you are a rock star in 6 months to a year. However, what that requires is that you are going above and beyond. I think a lot of modern day employees don't actually know what that means. And they think that showing up and doing their job, it, you're not even in the the range of rock star, right? Showing up and doing your job is doing just exactly what you should do. It's fine. It's great. I'm not, it's perfectly great to get a meets expectation. That is what the company has hired you to do. But a rock star, they're going above and beyond. That means they're managing, you know, what the baseline requirements are, and then they've either done it faster, they found a better way to do it, they've added to the bottom line, they've saved time, they've saved money. That's being a rock star. A rock star means you've impacted the bottom line of your company or organization, and you have proof, and you can speak to it. You can say that here was what I was tasked to do, and this is what we have been historically doing to solve this problem, but I tackled it in a different way, and here's what I implemented, and here were the results. Oh, we were able to get our product out of the door 3 weeks faster. What is the value of getting a product out of the door 3 weeks faster? um and I hate to keep using Tesla as an example, but it's the examples are just so good. Um, in a production environment, right? So this is just an example. You're in a production environment. We all knew that every 3 minutes there was an opportunity to make $1 million. Every 3 minutes that the line was up and running, there was an opportunity to make $1 million for the company. And so when you have those metrics in your mind, if you can figure out, how to, you know, extend the time, extend production time. If I was able to find 30 minutes, if if I was able to find an hour, by saving some employee from doing something inefficiently, or, saving waste or this, if you're able to save an hour, find an hour, that's, you can quantify that. You're like, that's millions of dollars that you would not have earned without my work. That's being a rock star. And I think the key to really understanding that is you have to know what the business is doing, what they're trying to accomplish, so that you can align to that. And that's hard to do as a new employee. It's just hard to do.
It is hard to do. However, if you communicate, if you're good at asking questions and making sure that your initiatives are being noticed, that's definitely much easier path.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Jerry, I wanted to touch upon the fact that we have, as women, a unique challenge of being unliked when we try to negotiate. That's just the data that proves that women are taken as being too harsh when they are assertive. How to avoid that?
There's a difference between being assertive and aggressive. I don't recommend being aggressive. Just because you are a woman and you're in a room full of men, I've worked in male dominated industries my entire career. You don't have to try to overspeak people. You don't have to answer all the questions. You don't have to dominate conversations. Remain true to who you are. Remain true to who you are. Be natural, be confident, but know your stuff. And that's how you get people's respect. It's not about how often you speak up. It's not about how deep your voice is. It's what do you have to say?
Mm.
Because you'd be surprised, when you throw in several value added comments, and you know, uncover an issue, or you speak very intelligently about a topic, the men will listen. They will listen, and they will, begin to, now that's a part of your brand. When Jerry speaks, we need to hear what she has to say, because, she usually guides us in a different direction, or she has something very insightful to say. And so, I've never really played into the whole idea that we need to compete with men. We are not competing with men. We don't need to try to be men. Let them be men. We are women, for a reason. We have we're built differently. We bring different things to the table. Lean into that, right? Lean into what you bring to the table, your intuition, your organization, your attention to detail. Lean into something they don't have, instead of trying to compete with what they are. I mean, that's my recommendation for. I've never had a problem. I just say what I'm actually thinking and feeling, and um, make yourself known in the room, and that's by adding value to the conversation.
As Racy, who is preparing this presentation today, she was in touch with you. She brought to my attention Roseanne Barr, who says, "The thing women have yet to learn is nobody gives you power. You just take it."
Mm-hmm.
So, with great branding comes great negotiation, it comes great communication online and offline. Now, Jerry, you talked about the fact that we sometimes are wrapped so much in what we need rather than
Mm-hmm.
what company needs. How not to lose touch with what company needs? What would you advise to someone who is not experienced in, let's say, Tesla, but wants to work for Tesla?
Well, where would I start? I mean, in a company like that, there's tons of data about it. But you go to the website, what is their mission? Right? What is their mission? What are they saying that these are some things we want to accomplish? You know, this is not this is not a promotion for them, so I'm not going to say what their mission is, but um do your research, go to their website, read some articles, find some articles from the leadership, right? Sometimes it's not the CEO, but maybe the CFO, or what, interviews, articles, anything can you find from their top leadership so that you can understand the direction of the company, what's important to them, what the culture is like. And so I think those are some ways that you can really start to get a feel for what's important to a company before you know, but also more practically, flat out ask. This is why when I encourage my clients to do informational interviews with other employees who work at the companies they're interested in, or who will have the roles that they're interested in, and with the recruiters and the HR people, whoever you're networking with to get your way into that role, flat out ask, what is important here? What would you say is the number one goal for everybody working here? See if they have an answer. I mean, I think a lot of times we're trying to reinvent the wheel when you really can just ask people the right questions and then use their answers verbatim to your to your advantage. I think that's a key to negotiating that a lot of people miss out on. That is, the negotiation is only going to go as good as the questions you ask. Either you've asked them up front, you've asked them during, but you can't enter the negotiation having asked zero questions, because then you have nothing to stand on. You can't use anything that they've said in your argument. And that's all you want to do. You want to covertly get the answers from them and then use those answers to your advantage. That's a successful negotiation.
Sorry about that, I was muted. It's not a one-way street. Both parties are unmuted. Use that opportunity to ask questions, use that opportunity to listen to answers and play on these. Now, Kim is wholeheartedly agrees with us. We are unique, and men and women balance each other. Just add value. That's a comment on your battle of sexes. Now, IPOV, which would be my husband Patrick Young, says terrific rock star points. Go the extra mile, or even just take an interest. Ask lots of questions. Management will see your curiosity and engage. May not pay you more, but ultimately, knowledge is power. Totally agree on that. Now,
Yeah.
Jerry, speaking of knowledge, what would be the number one book you advise anybody who want to negotiate like a pro, or want to build a personal brand like a pro?
My favorite book is Strategize to Win by Carla Harris. She's one of my big sisters in my head. I'd love to meet her one day. But when I was really trying to rebrand myself and figure out what I wanted to do with my career, Strategize to Win was imperative. I mean, she talks you through um, some of the things that I've talked about today, right? How to actually align what you've done to the things that the people need and how that works in negotiations. Um, so that's one of my favorite resources for negotiations. I think
What? Go
I was
ahead.
just going to say, I think a lot of people think that negotiation is just about spitting numbers back and forth and hoping that you get what you're asking for. Um, but it's really about matching needs with desires.
Matching needs with desires. I remember my first workshop on negotiation. I was coming too harsh, and
Mm,
I learned the great way of doing negotiation, which is win-win. Because as we know, if one party wins, the other will be unhappy about it. Sooner or later, either the employee or employer will leave the table. Now, Jerry, you talked about strategies how to get to that power. Um, of money or power of whatever perks you're looking for. Now,
Mhm.
let's talk about the five critical skills for any female that wants to work in STEM needs to have great career.
And you mean soft skills, right? Because hard skills can,
Absolutely.
yeah, hard skills can vary. Um, I think, my number one is, uh, I want to say communication is my number one. And I really think that all of my other skills that I suggest, they really lead up to being a great communicator. And so you have to have attention to detail. Attention to detail. And I'm very technical, right? So, when a person says something to me, I literally pick it apart and I'm like, oh, well, does that mean this or does it mean that? So attention to detail. And then decision making, you have to be able to make a call. I've met so many people and worked with so many clients where they are just sitting in indecision. And that, stems from fear of making the wrong choice. But decision making is really about being fearless. It's like, what's the best thing I can do with the information I have right now? And then do it. Um, I think conflict resolution is extremely important. You need to be persuasive. I think all of those things lead up to being a really good communicator because if you have attention to detail, you've been listening, you know what the person's saying, what they want. You have good conflict resolution. There's going to be conflict in a negotiation. You want one thing and they want another, but conflict resolution helps you meet in the middle. Um, and then your ability to decide which angle am I going to come to them from. You have to decide, pick a side, and then your ability to be persuasive in that conversation. You know, people will walk away thinking you are a great communicator.
That's beautiful. What about strategy for problem solving, Jerry? Is there one that fits all in your book?
Not really. It depends on the problem, right? Personal problem, work problem, business problem. They're all different. But I think what they all have in common, where I like to start with problem solving, is I like to make sure I understand the problem and I ask myself a couple of questions. Why is this happening? Why is this problem happening? Take notes. And then, maybe it's a personal thing. Why am I experiencing this? And so once you have those two key points, I know why this is happening. I know why I am experiencing this. What can I put in place? What actions can I take to mitigate those reasons that I just came up with, previously? What actions can I take to mitigate? And then, it goes back to decision making. Pick
Mm.
one and start there. Pick one and start there. That's literally all you can do with problem solving. Um, I think having an engineering background, I, I have completely undervalued um, how well my problem solving abilities have gotten because that's all you do as an engineer. Every day is a problem, and you have to figure out how to solve it. And so once you just get comfortable with like this is a problem, what let me come up with some options and let me be brave enough to try one and see if that'll work and then be able to dust myself off if it doesn't and try another thing. I think that's key and that's vital. I think until you found a solution that works, for you and the other party, keep trying.
Absolutely. We should not be afraid of the outcomes. Now, what would be your advice if your negotiations went wrong?
Well, I mean, define wrong. I mean, if you're not getting anywhere towards what you desire and you know that you're within range of what is available, um your skill set aligns with the things that they need and you can speak to it, you have proof. Sometimes there's just not alignment, and that's okay. And I think I would take a step further and I would ask, it seems that we can't find alignment on this. What is the What is the roadblock for you here? What's the one thing you wish we could come to an agreement on? And so continue the conversation. If you think the negotiation is going wrong, um, then scale back from the negotiation piece and turn it more into a conversation so that you can kind of, basically you're reverting back to the research. You're reverting back to, well, let me ask some more questions so that
Mm.
I can understand better. And then let's go at the negotiation again.
Jerry, we know that usually during the negotiation process, during hiring process, it's usually the HR department that says somebody else got the job. Now,
Mm-hmm.
how do we work with that data as an engineer or as a woman in STEM or as a person who is dealing with rejection?
Yeah. And that's an interesting topic because it's one of those things that's really out of your control. And that's why I recommend that you can't rely on recruiters and HR for feedback. That is not their job to make you a better interviewer, to make you a better candidate. That's actually not their job. So you can't rely on that. And if you get that news that you weren't the person, you need to recap exactly what happened in that scenario. Where did the conversation go where that I thought it was positive direction, and where were some areas where I thought the conversation was going in a negative direction? And that could be the interview, it could be the negotiation, it could be every stage of the interview process. And then, you know, find some tweaks. What are some things you want to do different? And if you're not sure, take that data, take that recap, go over it with a career coach, go over it with a trusted colleague, go over it with a mentor or someone to get their take on how things or how you could have changed the direction of things or how, you know, sometimes picking up on cues that, like, okay, I just answered this question and they just breezed over it and went to the next thing. Sometimes that's a cue that you didn't answer it all that well. So you got to start picking up, on cues that people are giving you.
Absolutely. As Kim Vermack says, regret and rejection, I think it is like marriage. If you are not aligned, you can save yourself years of heartache by spending years in the wrong relationship. We are in good relationship today, ladies and gentlemen. We are coming towards the end of our show, and I always like to ask this question. What is your favorite life lesson quote, Jerry, and how did it change you?
I actually don't have any life lesson quotes. I mean, I'm not I don't remember quotes all that well. So I don't really have anything. But I have a saying. I have an alert, a reminder that goes off on my phone every morning, and that is that action beats overthinking. And that is by Jerry Dozier. And that is a result. Um, I have a tendency to overthink, right? When you have a lot of solutions in your head, you want to overthink. But that goes back to my problem solving advice, right? Pick the best one based on the information you have in front of you and act on it and see what happens.
Absolutely. And when action is that you're in hot water, because as Eleanor Roosevelt once said, women are like tea bags. We don't know our true strength until we are in hot water. In life, how are you in hot water? How are you brewing, Jerry?
I think I'm just used to hot water. I think I'm used to hot water all the time. Um, so I think if you are uncomfortable in hot water, try to put yourself in more uncomfortable situations because it's like anything else. Practice makes perfect.
Hmm.
And
Change
once you
is
get used, yeah, once you
inevitable.
get used to hot water, you forget the water's hot and you just swim anyway.
Absolutely. That's a great advice from Jerry Dozier. Ladies and gentlemen, it's been emotional today. I hope we gave you the power to negotiate whatever you are trying to achieve. Now, I would like to remind you all that we have got next week another live stream with another great leader, Patty O'Callaghan, leading on the digital frontier. Patty is going to encourage us to go into leadership role, leadership positions, and we talked about it today as well as in previous live streams. I encourage you to check our previous live streams. Thank you very much, Jerry. It's been great to have you, and I encourage you to speak to us, everybody. Thank you.
Thank